Welcome back to Behind the Smile. My name is Jada and I'm an account manager with SmileShop Dental Marketing.
And I'm Michelle and I'm a business development manager at SmileShop Dental Marketing.
And today we are going to be talking about marketing metrics that matter. To start off, we should probably say every practice is different and therefore every practice's goals are different. So the metrics that measure success for each practice will obviously look different.
It's going to be different for every single practice. The metrics that are valuable to one practice might not be valuable to another practice. We'll go through some of those depending on what those goals are.
The factors that affect that could be how old the practice is, the size, where it's at in its life cycle. There's just so many different things that can affect maybe one practice. Their main marketing metric that matters is leads, whereas for someone else it's reach and engagement. It depends on the goals. So we'll tackle that a little bit today, but what do you want to start with?
So I would say let's start from the top of the funnel, right? So every patient, before they become a patient, they have to have heard about you from somewhere or have seen your ad somewhere. So I would say that before someone can even choose you, they have to know that you exist. The top funnel programs or marketing tactics that we normally use are digital awareness ads, right? So what do you feel is important when it comes to digital awareness ads, specifically like, for example, social media?
Main marketing metric that comes to mind when I think about awareness is reach. I think when we think about social media, a lot of people get caught up on the followers, the likes, but those are almost vanity metrics now. The main thing that matters is reach. 95% of people are not ready to buy right now. They're in the awareness phase of the funnel, like you mentioned. So the more people you reach, the more people you're targeting in that 95% not ready to buy in the awareness piece of the funnel, the more people who will recognize your brand once they are ready to move to the next level of the funnel. So what do you think? Would you say reach as well or something else?
I would definitely say reach. And also when it comes to digital awareness, it's about the amount of eyeballs that are going to see the ads. So the average person, sees about 5,000 to 10,000 ads a day. There's a lot of ad fatigue that's going on. So you want to make sure that message is very strong and it really sets you apart. That's the beginning when you're really going to capture that prospective patient to actually come into the practice. So I think reach is very important when it comes to social media, but I also feel like views for YouTube as well is also very important if they're looking at your ads, if they're looking at the entire ad, or are they skipping through the ad, right? I think another metric that's really important at the top of the funnel would be impressions, because it's the amount of times that your ad is seen in front of as many people as possible.
Yeah. In the awareness piece of the funnel, almost the more the better.
The more eyes you get on it, the better, but it's also about frequency. Can you talk to me a little bit about what reach covers versus impressions?
Explaining the difference between reach and impressions. Reach is the number of unique eyes that are seeing your content. So those are unique visits, those are unique eyeballs on your ad. Whereas impressions is simply just
the total number of people that are seeing your ad. You can have 100,000 impressions. That's just the amount of times that your ad was showing up in front of an eyeball.
So I could see an ad 5 times and I would count as 5 impressions.
You would still count as 5 impressions.
Yes. Whereas reach, if I see an ad 5 times, I only count as 1 because I'm one unique set of eyeballs. So that's the differentiator there. Reach can be more specific, whereas impressions can be a lot larger because you have duplicates.
And I also think what's important, not so much with the metric too, but it's also about the length of your video ads. So usually short form videos tend to perform a lot better than long form. You want to make the message really strong, but capture their attention within, I would say, 6 to maybe 15 seconds.
The shorter and the more impactful you can be in that short time, the better.
Exactly.
And most likely that'll lead into good metrics. More impressions, more reach. That's the goal.
Exactly. And I think that covers most of like the branding and awareness piece of the top of the funnel. This is where almost everybody is before they choose you. So you want to make sure that you're investing a lot at the top of the funnel in order to start to nurture them down the funnel. And I think the next part we want to really talk about is, how do they get to the interest phase?
Like Michelle said, if the top of the funnel is not full, you cannot expect patients to come through the funnel because you don't have anybody at the top. So in order to push people down, you need to hit on the awareness piece.
So interest. How do you get somebody from seeing an ad now to being interested enough is you frequently are popping up in front of their screens, right? So now they've seen your ad multiple times. So for example, I have a client that does sleep apnea ads, and they want to advertise that you don't have to carry around a CPAP machine. They have a different device. So somebody that doesn't love the CPAP machine that is being served the ad over and over again for a certain period of time, they start to become interested. And that's how we're driving people to engage with your social media page or engage with your website to learn more about that service or treatment option.
Yeah. The metrics we might use to tackle interest would probably be traffic.
Traffic to blogs, how long they're spending on
Yep.
specific pages of the website. Right?
Traffic and time spent, I think, are the two that really resonate with the interest piece of the funnel. Reach is they know you exist. Traffic now shows they're interested. Reach means they saw your ad somewhere, probably a social media post, an awareness ad, whatever it may be. Traffic means that they took interest in your ad, clicked through, and came to your site. So seeing traffic on your site shows interest, and it shows potential patients are curious in what services you have to offer, in what your schedule is looking like, in where your practice is. So traffic is a huge one in showing interest in your services and booking in.
And the metrics when it comes to traffic, I would say like visits to the website. We also want to see what people are engaging with. So if you have a great website and it's built to convert, are they clicking on the book appointment button? How easy is it for them to go through your site and actually book an appointment or learn more about that service?
Yeah, so from traffic, we can, if you have high traffic and you don't have a lot of conversions, we can deduce things like that. Like the book appointment page is not functional or the form is too long. We can use traffic to help streamline the conversions when we get to the bottom of the funnel, but we'll definitely touch on that more later. What do you think about time spent? How do you measure time spent? How do you connect that to the interest phase of the funnel?
I would say like if we're seeing that people are not spending a ton of time, it really varies, to be honest, because if you are in the learning phase where you're interested in something, you're probably going to spend a little bit more time on a blog page, right?
Yeah.
But if you're just trying to book an appointment, you're trying to get that immediate lead, you have an emergency, you cracked your tooth or something, you're probably just wanting to spend at least the least amount of time and friction possible to convert on that website.
Right.
So it really varies. It really depends on what that prospective patient's looking for and what you're trying to advertise for or capture.
Interest phase of the funnel, traffic, time spent. That's pretty much covers it. Moving to the decision phase of the funnel. So we're getting more narrow. We're getting into the phase where people are deciding where they want to go. What would you say is the top marketing metric you think of when you think about the decision phase?
For me, it really is the number of reviews. And it's also people looking at your website and being able to just see what sets you apart, right? So the metric for that is if you have a really strong About Us page or team page or a really strong Why Us and what sets you apart from other practices and the services. I would also say for decision making, it is clicks to the website, but not just clicks to the website, but conversions. So conversions means that that person actually booked an appointment.
Yeah. I think when we start talking about the decision phase is when we get into talking about the metric that everyone thinks of first off the bat. When you think of a dental practice, what marketing metric matters? It's conversions. So the decision phase is where we can focus on that, seeing the leads that actually come through from your site or from your ad and being able to measure those is a metric that is highly important to knowing if your marketing's working. Having reviews and the number of reviews and the quality and the stars of reviews is a huge, huge, huge metric that I think personally is overlooked a lot of times. It can be so profitable, but it is so overlooked.
I think that's so valid, and it's so important for practices to be really proactive in asking for the reviews.
Yeah.
There are some systems you could use with patient software that will help with like asking for the review, because I know that some practices are afraid that, well, what if somebody has something negative to say? It's always great to get feedback, and you will always, for example, I know Recall Max probably has this option where you get the review, and if it's like a 5-star, it gives them the option or the patient the option to actually leave the review on Google, versus if it was a little bit lower, it allows you to respond back to the patient and address their concerns.
That's such a great way for practices to get the best reviews on their Google business profile, but also be able to respond to maybe a poor review where a patient had a bad experience. They can tackle that issue and hopefully repair the relationship if trust is lost at all from that patient. So that's really cool. Another way reviews are connected is they actually influence conversions. I do it, you probably do it. Whenever I'm going to buy something, if I'm going to dinner, I look at the reviews and that influences my purchase decision or the decision of where I'm going to go. So reviews and conversions, they're two metrics, but they work hand in hand. So without reviews, you may get less conversions. So don't overlook them.
It's so true. And what I wanted to say about that as well is sometimes you might have great reviews, right? Or you feel like you have a lot of word of mouth business. You don't really need these reviews. Like you don't need a lot of people to leave reviews. Even if you have a lot of word of mouth or somebody else refers someone to your clinic, they're still going to go online and look at your reviews, and it will show up with other dental practices in their reviews as well.
Yep.
So in that decision-making phase, you want to make sure that your online reputation, social proof is really strong. So reviews are actually really important in doing that. And also, how are they engaging with your Google My Business page? Are they looking at map and directions? How close you are to them? Things like that can tell you a lot about the type of patient we're getting in front of.
Yeah. A referral only goes so far if they get to they Google you and they look and you have 2 stars or you have no reviews.
Yeah.
So make sure if you are getting a referral, they still want to come to you after doing their research. Something else we should probably cover in the decision phase of the funnel is
my favorite tactics.
Yeah, pay-per-click ads.
It's pay-per-click ads. It's paid search ads, because a lot of practices are just saying, I need this many new patients per month. I need butts and seats today. Pay-per-click ads are the type of ads that show up at the very top of Google.
Yep.
And they get you to the top of the search results. So, because SEO is a little bit of a longer term play.
Yes.
And what important metrics are in there that I feel like will help your practice be more efficient is understanding what is your cost per acquisition per patient. Is your investment or media spend being optimized efficiently to drive a return on your investment?
Yeah, if you're able to see your cost per acquisition and your cost per click, you can really see what the ROI is, because you want your marketing to be giving you return on investment. You want your cost per click and your cost per acquisition to make sense. You don't want to be spending way too much to acquire a patient when you could be doing it in a cheaper way. So having the targeting right, having the keywords right, having the ad groups right is massive in nailing down and having a good cost per click and cost per acquisition.
And you want to make sure that the landing page is a great experience, that every single keyword or prospective search that's happening is leading to your website and it's built to convert. So it's a really good measurement of ROI, but something to also keep in mind that a lot of practices don't think about is loss impression share. So this is a thing, like you can think or assume that your budget is working really well, but say for example, you have a high loss impression share of 50% as an example. It means that 50% of the time that your prospective patient is actually searching for you, you're running out of budget. You're not showing up for as much people as you possibly can.
Yeah. The lower the lost impression share, the better.
Yes.
And the way to combat a high loss impression share is to put more ad spend towards the ads, or take a look at what you're targeting. Make sure you're really honing in on the specific things you want to be showing up for, because if you're spreading your ad dollars so thin, you're targeting a million things and you're not specific, and
you target all of one whole city versus specific communities that you actually want to reach, you're going to run out of ad spend real quick.
Yep, it's not going to be effective. Your cost per acquisition is going to be crazy because you're not going to be getting those good high quality conversions. It's just going to throw everything off. So in order to achieve success in the metrics of cost per click, cost per acquisition, and conversions, you need to make sure your targeting is correct. You need to make sure your ad groups are correct and your strategy is aligned.
I completely agree with this. And that is also how people decide if they're, once they land on your website, if they're actually going to convert is built on your website. So this is another piece that, a lot of practices don't need to know this because it's usually us that help them with this, but it's the quality score of your ads.
Yeah.
So it's not just about the budget, but how is it being optimized? Do you have somebody actively going in there outside of just machine learning to constantly optimize your ads so it's performing the best that it possibly can?
Yeah, there's so many moving pieces. Dollars is only one piece of it. There's so many moving parts that make the metrics successful and help you hit the success metrics, like a good website, and having someone on your team to do these things for you and make sure things are optimized. You can only achieve success in these metrics if you have the other pieces of the puzzle, is what I'm trying to say.
It's like that patient funnel, right?
Yeah.
They come in and they get the oral exam and they get a hygiene appointment, but then how are you nurturing them down the process too to finally convert or get that Invisalign treatment, So there's a lot of different metrics we have to consider. So it comes back to that website. So when somebody is searching for you and that keyword is what they search for, they see your pay-per-click ad, they click on your ad, and your website page has nothing to do with Invisalign, but you're marketing that. We've seen that before.
That's the worst. The worst thing you can do is pay all this money to have someone get sent to your site to book for something that then they can't find on your site. So accessibility, it needs to be there. If you're advertising for it, it needs to be easy to find on your site. Mm-hmm. It needs to be as easy as possible for your prospective patients in order to be successful in any of these metrics, not just the ones in the decision piece of the funnel. So now we move into the last phase of the funnel, the smallest one. I think you said about 3% of people are in this phase of the funnel. Mm-hmm. So it's small, but it's mighty. Tell us what you think about the action phase. What's an important metric here? What do you see as what's the key standout?
I would say retention, patient retention, because you're investing so much marketing into attracting and getting these new patients. Now you have these new patients in the door. What are you doing to retain them? Right? That's really important. It's something that we miss a lot because every year it's just, I want new patients. But what is your recall strategy?
Yeah. Your return patient base makes up so much more of your practice and your revenue and your profit than the new patients you're bringing in right now. And they're also 5 to 10 times cheaper to reactivate and get back in the practice than advertising to somebody new. They're often forgot about because new patients are always the front focus, but these return patients and your loyal patients, they can bring you huge success if you reactivate them and you keep your retention rate strong. Mm-hmm. Ways to do that can be through showing them educational value through emails, for example. You can highlight the different services you have. You can make sure when they're in your practice, they're feeling the care, they're feeling the service, they feel like a part of your community. Retain them to the best of your ability. That's the key to success. I also feel like a lot of practices don't measure retention.
It's a very important thing. Like each year when you're building out that marketing plan and you have a revenue goal, you also have to take a look at how many patients did you lose in the last year? What's your attrition rate?
Exactly.
Right? Because if your revenue goal is to grow by 10%, you have to also consider what you've lost into that percentage for growth.
Yeah. So would you say the main thing that you would use to measure retention and help in measuring retention is the attrition rate number?
And it's not just attrition rate, but it's also like, of those patients, do you have a system that tells you, are they coming back for their next hygiene appointment? Do you schedule the next hygiene appointment? Have they stayed on a path of like the treatment plan that you've decided, right?
Keeping up with recalls, who's been out for 3 years and hasn't come in, keeping up on that type of stuff to see how you're retaining, if you're losing, how many are coming in, how many are going out, because it's a balance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Another important metric for practices is the production per patient. You also want to take a look at how many operatories do you have? Are you using all operatories to their fullest, right? How many hygienists are in the clinic? How many doctors are actually in the clinic so that you can measure what that goal should be? What else do you think is important too?
I think something that maybe slips under the cracks a little bit is cancellations and no-shows.
That's so true. I've heard of practices, and we do call tracking for some pay-per-click ads, and it would seem like the forms are being filled, somebody's interested, they've booked something, and practices tell me, oh, they didn't show up to their appointment, or they didn't reschedule their next appointment. And I'm always curious. I was like, what is that strategy to get them to book their next appointment so that you're filling in those gaps?
Yeah, it's important to be mindful and be aware of the amounts of cancellations and no-shows you have so that you can evaluate your strategy and be like, we had 5 cancellations or no-shows this week. Are we texting our patients to remind them of their appointment? Are we emailing them? How are we getting the message to them so that we can avoid these no-shows? Do we have a no-show policy? All of these things are important in making sure that the cancellation and no-shows go down. Because if you have a high cancellation and no-show rate, you're just losing overall. So be aware and be mindful of that number and be aware of the policies and the strategies you have in place to prevent that.
And what I have to add to this is the front desk, they make all the magic happen.
Yes.
So make sure that before your patient leaves the office and they've paid their invoice, that not only do they leave a positive review and they're leaving with a smile, but they're booking their next appointment.
Book them in right then and there. People will forget.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's been 3 years. So, book them in then and there. If you're not already doing that strategy, please try it. See how it works for you. See if it improves your recall. See if it improves your patient's reactivation.
At the end of the day, everybody is looking for a return on their investment, right? So there's so many different factors and things that are involved when it comes to a marketing strategy, depending on that practice's goals. But you also want to see, how is your marketing investment working for you? What is your return on investment?
ROI is the metric probably in shining lights. Everyone thinks about it. Everybody wants to know what they're getting on their marketing investment. That's where we come in as well. Like, I know for my clients, I track return on investment for all of them. I track what they spent on the advertising versus how many new patients actually came in. So you can get a real number of what the return was. Not only new patients, but also return patients. So you need to be tracking both. Everything is dollars you're making versus dollars you're investing. Knowing the numbers, knowing the return on investment, knowing how many new patients versus return patients you had each month is extremely helpful in being able to calculate this metric.
And I would also say another part of when we build out annual plans or we ask about marketing strategies, like, what is your average patient annual invoice, right? So that we can actually calculate what that would look like, including attrition, all of these other metrics to build out a plan for you to actually grow and get that return.
Yeah, in order to understand and see and be able to calculate your return on investment, you need to know your numbers. If we could say one takeaway from the return on investment piece, it is know
your numbers.
Yeah. It's helpful to not only you, but also if you have someone like us working with you, it is crucial in calculating that for you and making sure it's accurate and just giving you the best overall picture of what's happening in your practice and what's happening with your marketing.
And the numbers, they drive overall production, they drive your practice, staffing. It involves so many other things. So knowing your numbers will not only help your marketing, but it will help your practice overall.
I know we covered a lot today.
Yeah.
But to recap, in the awareness piece of the funnel, we want to look at reach. We want to look at impressions. We want to see how many eyes and how many people are seeing what you're doing. What about in the interest piece of the funnel?
That would be visits to your website, time spent, engagement.
Yeah.
That's what we would like to see.
In the decision phase, we talked about many things, but the three that stand out are probably reviews, number of reviews, quality of reviews. We look at, when we're doing pay-per-click ads, for example, cost per click, cost per acquisition, and the strategy there. And lastly, conversions, obviously the main one that people think about. But with conversions come the other two in the decision phase. And then for action, what are our metrics?
I would say, what is your recall strategy? What is your retention numbers? Like, what is the average revenue per patient? And how are you getting that patient to book their next appointment and to come back in?
Overall, over the whole funnel, we obviously want to focus on return on investment as a metric, but we cannot do that without the knowledge of the numbers and the knowledge of all the different metrics we talked about. So like the cost per click, or how much revenue per patient, production per patient you get on a visit. So everything ties together. We talked a lot about many different things today, but hopefully there was a good takeaway for you from today's video.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Behind the Smile.
And we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.